listeners today listening to this program. This is Sunday, September 10th, 2023. Um, Welcome again, as usual, for we participatory representation of uh, issues. We always welcome, and I'm for reminding we listeners them, particularly for those when at them first time this with the call, or we might be calling or sending in comments that this is a live show. So the ability exists for you to participate by calling in and raising questions. If not, you can send in written commentaries. And also, we want people to know that we are carried on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, WhatsApp, and so you get several abilities for reach we while we're on the air, so to speak. Uh, but even though this is electronically conducted, but the journalistic phrases on the air until such time that I can find a better phrase with respect to the reality of how these shows are being presented. Now, we get some numbers then usually where we can try to make with public or we listeners them, or we audience then get. So for give them more choices in reaching us. So if you're calling from North America, which includes Canada, Mexico, and the United States of America, if you are within this hemisphere and you want to call, there's a toll-free number of 1-866-944-7722. 866-944-7722. Those are the numbers to call, or that's the number to call. So you can able for reach you without cost to you, without you being charged any telephone long distance fee because it's international. But you have to be within North America, which for purposes of this broadcast and geographically is Mexico, United States of America. Now, if you're calling from the United Kingdom, also which has a local number to be able to reach us, but we don't know how extensive that number is local to people depending on where you reside in England or in the UK. But to a large extent, you can call without cost to you if you call plus 44 2080891455 plus 44 2080891455. If you're calling from Australia, the same applies with respect to the assumption of telephone cost is free to a large extent. If because it's a local Australia line, but maybe not everybody, depending on where you are in Australia, will be able to use this number and get a free call. But to a large extent, it is free because it's a local Australian number. It will be plus 61 29 09 84 337. Plus 61 29 09 84 337. And if you are calling on WhatsApp, that would be 1343 997 5828. 1343 997 5828. WhatsApp is international across the board, or across board. So I think from anywhere you may call, or you can call that number and you may be able to access we. You can, you might reach we. So you may be able to access from anywhere in the world as far as I know. So the number again, the WhatsApp number is 1343 997 5828. And we also get one more outlet added to the list of outlets where we can be reached. We also have radio station in Freetown, which is 91.9 FM. 91.9 FM. That too, if you are in Freetown, if you are in Sierra Leone, just like some of the other numbers, you may not be able to catch us through 91.9, depending on where you're located. So, but if you're in Freetown, even though if you're in Freetown, if you're in the eastern area of Freetown, you get a more higher likelihood for Richwe, for Veriwe, than than any other part of Freetown. So it's not enough to just be in Freetown. You have to be in a particular area, which is the eastern part of Freetown. So we try to make them qualifications and let people not get frustrated in trying to reach us, and they would all get their information and say, well, we can't reach them people here. So these are some of the outlets where we're not going to reach you. Now, as usual, there are always plenty of issues for talk about Sierra Leone. And we always, they try not for just deal with just the popular stuff, okay? We want to deal with important stuff. Some issues may not be as important to people or apparently important to people now as it may appear later. But believe me, some of the issues here, would they go through them, would they foresee or would they anticipate the significance of some of the issues here? Now, would they discuss them? So today now, I am going to just let me co-host Mr. Victor Mengot, introduce himself, and then tell we today watching the topic for the day, and we'll go from there. So without much ado, let me turn you over to Mr. Victor Mengot, me co-host. So I turn it to you, Mr. Mengot.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chilon. Today, we can look at a very important issue, Mr. Salon. To start with, one of the things we viewers always comment about are issues to do with citizenship's rights and duties, especially when it comes with when you're charged to court in the judiciary. We get an update on the Camarimba case, and I feel to say my colleague, the lead host, Leone'S Shilon, will rub much on this more. But the main topic for tonight, now this new announcement we will get from the government, say they want to do constitutional review. And this is not a new thing. Since we get the 1991 constitution, there has been several reviews. But now, this government say, well, it's never too late, because when I've been listening to the Solicitor General, he say, they may get one under President Kaba, but by the time then they done them, it lead to the 2007 election. So they're not being get for actually do anything about that. Then the same thing happened with the time where just hold on, sorry about that. The same thing happened, the time the Cowan, Justice Cowan one, which are the most recent one. A more comprehensive one, where then the white paper been go to parliament. Now the issue there, another white paper they will also can discuss. Now this government self under President Bio be not do some also other constitutional review committee, where they mean choose one or two issues then at the constitution where they say then they deal with. So most times they would not argue say, why would they look at this constitutional review in a piecemeal? When I mean piecemeal, would they look at half? It don't know each time for law look at the whole constitution, which we don't do the review that we don't do and consolidate everything. So for discuss that, one, we want to look at the timing. Is this the right time? That makes what we call on the great citizens debate. Number two, who then are the people them way could do this review? Because the Cowan review, lot of money and there are a lot of people them. But most of them people and they now from within Sierra Leone. Like other countries, I will give example of Kenya where I've been there, we get the same crisis, right? Although yes, we been get international NGO that will contribute, is it time that we get experts, external experts on constitutional matters to come help with the review? And finally, what you want review? Because if we look at the current right paper, they introduce 4 new chapters then, where they recommend, where we want discuss. And then very part of what we talk now today. Then at the local government decentralization, citizenship, land, natural resources, and the environment, and we know the issue of land and the land laws that will get a saloon, the customary land law, the landlord in a saloon, and some of the cases of land. Then information, communication, and the media. Then we also get other chapters in the Constitution where they say, well, we need for actually look at them thing and day. So if time permits, we go look at the existing chapters them, but now look at because the existing chapters that I think for do with principle of state policy, recognition of protection of human rights and freedom of individual, representation of the people. That is very important, but we'll talk about that. That is terms of election, whether for votes, whether not for votes, whether they go vote for. Then it deal with the 3 arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So if we get time, we will rub much by the existing chapters, but then we want to delve more on the new chapter the way they propose. And some of the experience we don't get. Let me say in the last 15 years, the 2 terms of President Ernest Bai Koroma in government, and also the first term of President Bio. So now that's what we want to discuss tonight. Over to you, Mr. Shillon.
All right, sir. So we're going to start off with the Camarimba issue. For me, as a lawyer in the United States, but not only that, as a lawyer trained in the United States, civil rights, due process, equal protection, these are all issues and phrases that are very important to me. Now, I can fully appreciate and understand if you are a lawyer, you are not trained in the United States, and I get for qualify the word train. Train means lawyers who went to law school in this country and attained their first law degree, because that gives you a comprehensive understanding and qualification of training. Not to people and we get advanced degree, when a specialization, we can still miss a chunk of what some of the constitutional issues here mean. But for me, as I always point out for those who have been listening to a program, I've always felt Camarimba case was a test case for we adherence to a constitution or to constitutional law in our country. And I always cite that case there without knowing much about Camarimba himself, but I know enough of what he's been accused of that I can form a reasonable opinion as to the impropriety of what he was being held in detention for before his trial. The entire issue boiled down to race. I mean, to rape with Mr. Camarimba. And in a nutshell, he was being accused of having married somebody, a young person, who, despite the fact that she had become his wife, then there was this presumption that the person was underage based upon the definition of what statutory rape means in Sierra Leone. Therefore, he had no defense. Now, let me explain to people, there is rape, there is statutory rape. Rape generally Now, where you engage in sexual relations with somebody of the, well, before it used to be of the opposite sex, but because of modern day definition of the LGBT rights, if you engage in sexual act with anyone, be it a man or a woman, or being with somebody of the same gender, against the person in which you could and you may and you can be accused of having raped that person there. Of course, that's not just an accusation. In the Camarimba case, they use the phrase statutory because the law prescribe or get certain age where a woman for reach, where that woman they just like in the law generally, when they say a child has to be of a certain age for be able to give consent. So if a 5 or a 10 year old or a 12-year old go buy something or go sign an agreement for a loan or for anything, and usually even for committing a crime, the law say that 10-year old, in brain not mature enough for be able for form a solid negotiation with anyone because his in brain still to grow. Because of that, the law gets a certain threshold or cutoff line where that picking they like you sign a contract, say, oh well, I owe you this money, I will pay you, or an agreement. The law say that will not be recognized because they not reach the age of maturity where if for whole accountable or liable for an action, even sometimes in criminal act. A certain age is cut off, where they say you not reach the age for the account for your conduct because of your age. So statutory rape, now the law just bring up, they just pass a law. Say the law requires, you get statutory rape now in many Western nations, they would try for copy. We say, like in North Carolina, for instance, we own at the age of 13. Okay, if you are below 13 years old, it no matter if the person who you engage in sexual act with. Now, remember, in some countries, Sierra Leone is not included. Sexual act is recognized usually between man and woman. But in a country like America, South Africa, and many other countries, uh, there is the right of same legitimate, same intimate act between same sex. So, and that can be construed to be uh, rape. So therefore, we in Australia, we come up with this thing, this issue. Now we have to remember with background. Sierra Leone, unlike America, Sierra Leone, unlike England, Sierra Leone, unlike Australia, we get 17 tribes with 17 different cultural, customary practices, of which the law tends to either look the other way or the law tends to tolerate. One example in our country, like where you get the Bondo Society, which allows young women to be go through some kind of fraternal or for some kind of process by which when they are out, they can be in some culture, that young woman, the parents can get the power for give her into marriage. Her consent may not even be that important. As long as the parents want them for married, they get for married, and the parents are under no obligation to seek permission from authorities to allow that young woman for married. In some of the cultures of the tribes, them, and in some of the culture, young women can marry at any age or can be married at any age. Then in some of the culture, you may be presumed to have committed statutory rape, that now a sexual act with someone where even if the person consents, Because statutory rape simply say, it no matter if the person agree, you cannot use that as a defense. So a young person, man or woman, can say, yeah, again, consent for law we engage in intimate relationship. And the law can say, well, you consent no matter because you're too young, you don't know what you to do. But this person where you give consent or where you give permission for no better. Therefore, we still accuse them of statutory rape because it get consensual relations with you, even though you not force you on a mutual understanding for engaging that act there. So Camarimba, it seems like, and we have to be very careful because my position has always been when you allow the right of one person to be overridden by the powers to be, like by the government, you jeopardize everybody else in rights. So we have to be careful of how each and every one of us are being treated. And sometimes then things only come to light when some prominent person get into a problem with the law. I may not have been as concerned as I am if Camarimba had not been a member of parliament and if he had not been a prominent person, if it was the ordinary Joe or John, this will have gone unnoticed and may also contain for every Camarimba you see where the criminal justice system in Sierra Leone they go after unjustly. There are thousands of Camarimbas of whom the criminal justice system has been so unmerciful, and yet nothing is being said. Because if I read, I might find the area where there's some woman waited in a prison for 6 years when a judge recently released him. 6 years you've been held without trial. But let me just stay with the Camarimba thing now. So that situation there is a welcome relief to someone like me who takes very seriously the right of an accused, who takes very seriously what the word constitution means in a governmental sense. Not the way you form organization or draw up a constitution, the basics are the same. But I've always told the people, say, a constitution usually is written with the sense of limitation of the powers of the government, not to with respect to how people should govern themselves within a civilized structure or society. So when we write this, when we write a constitution, no matter of the restraints for the on government, restraining government from being able to do certain things when they might want to do, just because they get the power, even if it may be unjust. So the skeleton of a constitution is usually that of restraining the government and guarding or checking against the excesses, of governmental power. That's what a constitution usually means or intends when we talk about governance. But what we have done as Sierra Leone, we've mixed up constitutional restraints or constitutional law with statutory law. Statutory law went up to the fundamental law. Now the secondary law given to parliament or we parliamentary body for make laws governing the activities of individuals within a set community or nation. So parliament come now within the context of the constitution and set limitations on we the people as to how we will conduct ourselves. For example, a statutory law, and we're not use that phrase itself, the word statute. It's barely used, or the phrase statutory law. we depend this act, this section, that, this, that. But there's a broad generalization and there's a categorization of laws. You know, now you make we get constitutional law, we get criminal law, we get civil law, and within civil law, we get domestic law, we get a law of contract, and on and on and on and on. So now, going back to the Camarimba situation, my thing here is we have to, and I put a lot of blame on. This is where I can stick my neck out. I blame the APC for the unjust treatment of Camarimba because they knew they can. I mean, you can see injustice. Injustice comes in one color mostly. So when you see injustice, you go recognize injustice. Now, it appears as if because Camarimba was not an APC member, because it is the job of the opposition, which now, then and now, that the APC, and the APC are the biggest opposition party of all of them, when they see such manifestation, demonstration of injustice, they should be the ones sounding the alarm. You don't let someone be taken undue advantage of just because it's not one of you guys. Had the APC gone out with them because they get a broader megaphone than the smaller political parties and raise issues and raise concern when Camarimba was being denied bail, and even to some extent when he was granted bail, there were all kind of twists and turns about the powers above. The APC now they get the biggest megaphone for raise that issue there. It should not only be affect one of them. Because when they talk about the law is not being drawn or enacted for, it might be intended to affect one person. But no law not do it in the draw when one person is the effect. Once it becomes law, it affects the entire nation. So I've always felt this man meets all the requirements of being granted bail. And sometimes I think we judges them for betraying a little more, and then give them in many ways. We judges them for betraying in the sense of really following the spirit of the law, not necessarily the letter of the law. Because it's what you call the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. The spirit of the law is that the intention behind the law, if it is fair, even if it is improperly or vaguely written, we cannot just interpret the law in terms of what and how it is written. We therefore inject the spirit of the law. So with respect to bail, now forgive somebody an opportunity for in day in court without unreasonably limiting the ability for earn a living or for provide for his family or for engaging in everyday activities and just activities. But what we are doing mostly, I wouldn't even say mostly, because generally I think in Sierra Leone, bail is granted to people who tend to most people, it has never been an issue as it has been with the Camarimba situation. The Camarimba situation, it was an eye opener because you can see and smell and feel the political interference behind it. Because the reason why he was not being granted bail had nothing to do because the court can set conditions for appearance without being detained. The court can set, and some of them conditions then the court gets elaborate discretionary power for take away your ability to travel if you are accused of a crime, depending on the nature of the crime, not all crimes. The court can take into account if you're at a risk of flight, that is if you go run away. And if the ordinary Joe Blow run away, it's not the same as a prominent person in Sierra Leone run away. because regardless of which I go, whether or not even if he come abroad in the Western Hemisphere like America, them place here, they will know, people will know him because there are Australians all over the world. He will be recognized. What will go back that we saw him here and there. Not to like the ordinary person will come out now, some village, or he come out Newton, or he come out Hastings. So they can go back and go hide now any other village now other part of the country, people are not going to recognize them. But there are certain people, like Camarimba now, he was a man fairly known, maybe not facially by most of the people, but by a sufficient amount of people. Another major consideration in granting bail is the criminal history of the person. Does this person have a criminal history? And the nature of the criminal history this person has had in the past. So, criminal history, if a traffic offense can be a criminal offense, but that's not the kind of thing you take into account where you grant bail for. Say this man, it all speed, it all lost control of his car 20,000 times. That will not be a fair assessment of whether this person will appear in a court. But when you talk about criminal history, we involve serious matters like drug possession, drug trafficking, burglary, rape. I mean, serious matters that a magistrate or a judge can take into account for make an assessment as to whether this. Because number one, everybody is entitled to bail, so it's a constitutional requirement. So the judge not get for begin wonder if for granting bail or not. The only thing you get for do is he a risk of flight. If I grant him bail, will he appear? And then the judge gets such wide discretion, or the magistrate, he can grant bail, they can let the person just sign in on bail, supposed to. What we call written promise to appear, you know? Or the judge can put monetary condition. Say, okay, well, then somebody can become the surety in the sense that you say, well, because of the nature of the crime, because of the possibility or the likelihood that you might flee or run away, okay, the judge can take some of the incident into account because of your criminal record in the past, will involve violent crimes or serious felonies. And that's another thing too. We're not the phrase that we're not hearing in our country much in the law. And in criminal law, you therefore make that distinction there, between misdemeanor and felonies. Because a person with a felonious record ain't get more serious record than a person with a misdemeanor record. But we're not to make that distinction in there. I think what the craft will lose them for protect the civil, the human, the constitutional rights of people. These are some of the things we frame as them for take into account, for make them distinctions than they. Let them not just make a broad accusation for say you get criminal record. So Camarimba, for all I know, had no criminal record, which speaks volume. He also was a member of parliament, I presume. I may be corrected. So, and he also was a family man who had responsibility to take care of his people. So judges or magistrates should not just disregard or discard that and just say, hey, and family then go fend for themselves. Because if you're not the major breadwinner, that is a major consideration. That's why people then need to get lawyer right from the get-go, from the beginning. So your lawyer will put all the mitigating, in law we will use the phrase mitigating factors as to why you should be granted bail. Now the state can come and come up with what you would call aggravating factors. Well, basically, in a nutshell, now things then will for make the court not grant you bail. Why the government or the government lawyers and things say if they grant you bail, it means tata, the court not going to see you again. So the judge or the magistrate is faced with all in there. So in conjunction with the rights to bail, Way that magistrate therefore takes seriously because he's not looking just at that individual. He try to interpret the law. But the spirit of the law, because the law already say you are entitled to bail by law. Now the intent now and then. So he therefore make all our assessments there, and then make a determination as to how much, if any amount of money, you go risk losing, or the surety go risk losing, if the person who's being granted bail absconds. I'm not so sure when you look at the Camarimba case, the fact not be out that he was treated fairly. And we cannot tolerate this practice of saying, I don't know the person or may not belong to the same political party, so let the system kill him or string him like roast beef if they want. We don't care as long as not one of your members they may be. So I refer to the APC because these are some of the things when we're in a government, everything should not just be political. I mean, try for make ourselves to the people no say an alternative to the governing party, and that's when I can do better. So now, to cut long matters short, Camarimba was denied bail, and there was this rumor going around that he is presumed, maybe not by the authorities, but by reliable area or corner or portions of society, that he is an American citizen. Well, I do immigration law. That's what I do now. Over the years, I was a criminal attorney, a criminal lawyer. I love the phrase where you say criminal lawyer. It's like you're a lawyer who will commit crime. It can be interpreted that way. In fact, when you say me a criminal lawyer, now literally, you can be a lawyer where they commit crime. But is that why they talk about the spirit of the law and what the law is? But is that what that means? Everybody knows that's not what it means. If you're a criminal lawyer, you do criminal cases, you represent people on criminal matters. But sometimes words can be loosely put together for infer or create different meaning if one wants to take the law literally. That's the reason why when you interpret the law, that's the reason why the profession once upon a time was supposed to be a profession of people of reasoning, people and way they think, people and way they think deductively, constructively, not just because anybody can do it, because some people don't get a balanced sense of fairness. So Camarimba then say, well, he was Camarimba was an American citizen. I assure you, if he was an American citizen and somebody of his family will have long gone to the American embassy and complained that an American citizen is being held. Now, I don't want that to be misunderstood because we are so heavy on this sovereignty, right of sovereignty, interference, and all this kind of thing. But we see time and again when an American citizen or a British citizen or an Australian citizen is held, like in Russia or in China or in many other countries, where the government in the annual assessment, the home government in the annual assessment thinks that the person is being held under political suspicion, the embassies of those countries step in and get some contact with the Attorney General as well as the powers to be for say, well, we understand when I detain one of our citizens, we not say the citizen should not be held, but this is what we have. These are the facts we have at hand. And based upon what you know, we think say this person, they not say then think say the person not guilty now. But then they say we think say this person is being held under suspicious circumstances. This person is being framed. There are no factual basis to really hold this person, that this person not commit a major or an actual crime. But in the Camarimba case, someone just said we have a lot of people who have been incarcerated unjustly. We are all human beings and nobody should be, okay, I didn't get it. We have a lot of people who have been unjustly without process. Nobody talk on their behalf. Well, and nobody talk on their because they are ordinary Israelis. Well, that's the issue I'm raising. Well, because they are ordinary Israelis and nobody speaks on their behalf, because we now get a concept of how the implication of the law that when one man in right is threatened, everybody else in right is threatened. So Naemeku for sound the alarm, we will begin to see unjust activities on the part of the government. And when we say government, we always think about the president, we think about parliamentarians, we think about ministers, but the police is a government
Yeah,
institution.
yeah, Mr. Shillon, I mean, just to break the sorry to interrupt your flow,
No
because I
problem.
want to also ask you about waiting this commentator make, because recently there was in the news that they asked the judiciary for look at over 800 cases of people that were the Pademba Road, and one who have been cited now a lady we don't day inside parliament, we don't in a prison or correctional centers and say for almost 5 years
Yes.
for some crime. We are now they free 'em. And a lot of these things are going on now. My question is, why is it only now that the judiciary is now having these cases being reviewed? And also, we get an organization, Nasalon, where I think there's a lady called Fatmata Claire Ansels, the Legal Aid Board. When I then for be the champion of their miscarriages of justice or for even go to the prison. Are we employing people, getting some of these institutions bigged up without exactly what they should do to protect the right of citizens? Because these are issues which will come about when we discuss matters relating to constitutional review. I just want your take on that.
All right, sir. Okay, let me just sum up the Camarimba thing. Then I go deal with that Ed in there. So it's a good thing, and I think Mr. Mengot be asked me in a private discussion since Camarimba was convicted, which means he's gone through trial, and the issue of bail rejection was before he was convicted. He was trying to get out, way down in a part of in due process, because if he was out, he would have been able to amass what it takes, probably be able to get witnesses and this and that, for mount a formidable defense. He was deprived of all of that just because there was some powers to be that was against bail. So Mr. Mengot asked me the question, since he's been convicted, can the higher court grant bail? And the answer is yes. I think appropriately so, because there are two procedures with respect to bail after a conviction. The person goes to trial, is found guilty by the jury or the judge to be in violation, and then the act calls for punishment. The judge can use his own discretion. Judges have wide discretion. He can say, well, in America, yeah, in Sierra Leone, it's not a common practice, but I think if we begin to look into a procedural, criminal procedures, you can be found guilty by a jury or by a judge, then sentencing, when I get conviction, is set for a later date. Sometimes, if it is around Christmas time, or if it is around a major Sierra Leone, what do you go like for see? You can look at the nature of the crime. You can look at the likelihood of the person going to jail. Then we can postpone with the postponed sentencing at this country. For say, okay, you've been found guilty. Now you know the condition. So me, the judge, or the court get the power for detain you. Even if you are not on bail, now there is some suspicion. So we're going to postpone your sentencing under certain condition. For travel outside the country, you for return your passport to such and such, or for travel outside the Western area, or without and we get probationary system now, yeah, where we for also adopt because we deal with human beings. People who help the court for determine and check your background and see give the court some insight as to whether you are a risk. So when they find you guilty, we now sometimes they can sentence you the same day, sometimes they can sentence you later. All that is subject to the discretion of the judge. But discretion of the judge, there's also get what which you call abuse of discretion because some judges do abuse discretion. Uh, I can I can give you instances of cases that would take place in Australia, like the LAJ case. You don't sentence somebody to active time in prison. In prison, these are the things that open and talk say get political overtune. Restrain, restrict that person in freedom because when I say the essence of the crime we commit, it was not a violent crime. Nobody was hurt. Now, if certain gallons of fuel were taken and they were taken under criminal circumstances according to the state, and you give a person years in prison, that will never happen in the West. It will never happen because the rights of individuals are taken more seriously than how would it take. It looks like individual rights are not that's a major consideration in our own country. Particularly if you are known, if you're famous, that could work against you in our country because you get certain powers who go on for lock you up for two. And if you are infamous, like if you're a popular criminal, that also could work against you. So we want to do it across the board. So that is one thing, that kind of situation we for work against. You don't, so we see a situation. So Camarimba, in the sense, as Mr. Mengot be asking me, yes, the Court of Appeals get the power or for grant bail. The courts get power for grant bail, I think, at every stage, because the whole idea, no matter of justice. So if the court sees just injustice at a certain level, the court for step in, the court of appropriate jurisdiction. Because, if a magistrate refuses you bail, another magistrate cannot grant you bail because they are of equal authority. So you get to go to a higher court for grant you bail. The same happens with high court. Another high court judge now get the ability for overrule another high court judge. That's how the system should work, and that's how I think it works. So since this is a higher court, yes, they get the power for grant Camarimba a bail, and I think that's the appropriate thing. It's unfortunate that he's being granted bail under some of the most deplorable condition, in the sense that the man has been sick for an extended period of time. We get a lot for do with in due process and fundamental fairness, and the circumstances and the mental condition he was in at the time he was convicted. I think even under the slightest requirement of fairness, I mean, his lawyer should not have taken the case to trial, should have strenuously object to him being tried. But again, we mix up a lot of things back home. We have to be able to understand that lawyers trying a case is a skill all by itself. We now refer to you as a trial lawyer. A trial lawyer is a skilled person when a young God-given talent, in addition to the law degree we get, it can put the entity together and can fight for you in court. So me cannot see how, if Mr. Camarimba was as sickly as they claimed he was, and the condition under which he was brought to court few times, that any lawyer, in fact, the man should not have even been brought to court under those conditions. The lawyer just gave to present credible evidence that is unfit to start trial for certain reasons. But that said, it's good that it's being allowed bail. I don't know how effective that is at this time, but I have to say kudos to the court for doing that. So overall, the Camarimba case is a bad taste in the mouth of we all if we understand what fundamental fairness is, what due process is, and just what is just being fair. We have to take that into account. Now, the issue what Mr. Mengo just asked me about, this again is another thing. We supposedly have uh, human rights, civil society people in the country. Let us not forget, it was just not long ago. Okay, this case where Mr. Mengo cites about this woman who was being held in prison or in jail for years, 5 or 6 years. Well, it was just last year, if I'm not mistaken, that Justice Brown Mark was supposed to was appointed by the Chief Justice at the behest of the European Union. And this is another thing. The European Union therefore tell we, say, hey, when they get too many of our innocent people languishing in jail, now we were to make all this big matter about sovereignty. Okay? Now the white man, now therefore tell we say we treat ourselves bad. No pride among ourselves for respect the human rights of a fellow Israeli or a black person. But we say if we are as racist as we come, when the white man they tell we, and I use the word white in the general in the generic sense, not because all nations now, or most nations, have multitude or multiplicity of races, well comprised in citizenry. So Europe has a lot of black Europeans. But I'm saying the white man because this is still being done by the white man. When a white man see injustice, we not see him. Now the white man get for tell we say, hey, the woman of the truth and the people, they're not right. When I get too many people and what they suffer. Now jail, when a system seem not for care about. So now the white man, the one that will get the big mouth, where they talk about sovereignty. Only when it involves politics. And the politics, because they don't seem to even understand what's in a politics. Some of them are opportunistic phrases, statement and they make. Some people in the sit down there because they want jobs, they want appointment with the government. Then you don't need for step in and defend government. Government get power. They don't need your help. I mean, it reminds me of people who, for religious reasons, go around wanting to kill another fellow human being because you say something we don't know like about the prophet, about the God we don't believe in. Well, if the God is the God we think, say, it be, where we all know say is all powerful, all knowing. He don't need any much amount of help for go kill somebody or hurt somebody. God will take care of it himself if the person deserves some punishment. I've never understood the logic why certain people within certain religion or outside certain religion think they don't get the power in the name of God for go hurt other people just because you say something or then came say you blaspheme the prophet, you blaspheme the religion, you blaspheme this and that. So it's the same thing. We don't need to help government. Government not then have the power. So all this cry about sovereignty. Government get ambassadors. Government get foreign representatives. Government can present, they can make their case stronger than any one of we. Waiting for be concerned about, like the people like the Sanos them and the civil society, now the way the least among us is treated. And that's what even the religions, Christianity in particular, talks about that. How the least among us is treated or are treated. Okay? So when people and they make all this thing about sovereignty, we not to see them jump up where they every case like this woman will spend 5 or more years. And that woman is just a representative of that. I think if you go up and down the country. But it was just last year, or within the past 2 years, that Justice Brown Mark was supposedly taking care of that at the suggestion of the Commonwealth. I think the Commonwealth. That there are too many people languishing and we prisons them, who have not been brought to trial, who've been there, whose lives are being wasted. So I asked the question, how did Justice Brown Mark miss this woman? Where did they all these years? And I'm sure Justice Brown Mark was not doing it pro bono, meaning free. Again, the Commonwealth or the European Union get for pay the powerful among us for treat we safe, fairly, humanly, or humanely. They get for pay we for low treat we safe humanly. And let us not forget, say, that's our history. This is part of our history where we not try for change. We great grandpapa them or granddaddy them gonna get the power, the grandmammy they not get power. Now then be engage in intertribal wars, capture each other, and begin sell we in slavery. Which man no can wage war against we for kapu we for bring we come now the Americas. You know? Now the cruelty in we, the insensitivity in we, what would still demonstrate to this day, despite the fact that which man don't try to teach we over and over and over, decency, we continue to fall back into this savage way of behaving. So this woman was in the system. How did Justice Brown Mark miss him? You know? And there are so many of these people in prison. But again, first of all, we don't care about these people. Okay? Then we get a bar association. These issues are not being raised because everything is looked in the lens of politics. What political party politics? Politics affect we all. But everybody, if you're not pro SLPP lawyer, and if you now belong to a certain tribe, you think say you owe an allegiance to a particular political party just because of geography. Okay? You see no evil, you hear no evil. It's only when the other side does it. We need to get out of them practices there. This is what I speak about. Okay?
Well, I think, Mr. Shillon, you actually dealt with this. We've gone over almost 1 hour now. And these are issues which I think are fundamental to this. The main topic today when are the constitutional review process. And one of the existing chapters there will get now the recognition and protection of human rights. So I think we've spent an hour there. I'm sure our listeners have actually learned a lot from you. But I don't know if you want to round up now so we can go to part 2 of
I'm good because I don't even need any rounding up. I think I've said enough. Let me just add to the fact that the lines are open. Some comments were coming in, but people are welcome to call and ask questions. The lines are open, callers. So I forget to mention that. So please feel free to call in and ask certain question. We've seen comment long overdue, injustice delayed is justice denied. All of that is true. So please call. I encourage you people to call on the toll-free line. Okay, somebody asked me a question. I get a comment. How about the white man killing and locking up black people? But that's not the point. We're talking about killing black and locking up black people. That's what we are more concerned. This is not a racial issue. I think people should get an understanding. You know, sometimes I get for restrain myself for answer that kind of a thinking there. We are not talking about black men killing of blacks. I mean, white people, the injustice. We know that. They are of a different race. That's one category of cruelty. But when they talk about what we do until we save, we continue, and the very white man, what would they say bad? Now, in the tell, we say, hey, look, we're not treating our people. So we should be concerned, you know? So somebody is also saying the LAJ case, somebody was hurt. What did he hurt the person? Was he who hurt the person, or in the milieu, someone was hurt? So you get the facts straight. Try to know if he was the one who hurt the person. So you see, these are all the political issues that people don't get into. So now, because you may not like LAJ, you feel it is justified. But now, if that happened to your brother or sister, or sooner or later government change and do that, oh, there you go, you hear all kind of a hue and cry. We are trying to encourage people to have some objective sense of fairness. Enough of matter. The criminal justice system, which Sierra Leone copy, then say the system is judged by how we treat the presumed guilty person, not to how we would treat, that's why they say everybody is presumed to be innocent. Even if you kill somebody before somebody, then say the system forgive you a presumption of innocence only because we try for come up, because this is not a science. It's a social, well, it's a social science, not physical science, in the sense that we try for come up with a balanced sense of fairness, how we treat ourselves. So this is not a matter of white man killing black, black killing white. We are talking strictly as to how we treat each other. So when you send in a comment, if you think because white man does it to us, so we have a right to do it to each other, fine. It's your take. I don't respect that idea there, but I accept it. But that's not the issue here. It's how we treat we self when we get the power, not a white man country this. America is a different place. And the whites then get the power. You can cite many injustices. We see that every day. We're not going to problem. I get a lot of problem with that. And I have fought my own battles with the system as a trial lawyer. So, but that's a different story. But that said, let me pass the over to Mr. Mengot for, that's my wrapping up for now. Back to you, Mr.
But before
Mengot.
I go and start this here, I think we have a call on the line. Let's start this call and then we'll start this issue about the constitutional review process and the great citizen debates, because we want it to be interactive. So we have a call on the line. So you give the normal prompt.
All right. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you call from? You don't have to necessarily identify your name. You can use an alias, but where you calling from is important.
Yeah, Mr. Shulan, this is Abdul. I come from Maryland.
Oh, Abdul, welcome. Today,
Yeah, thank you
please
for
go on.
the talk. Yeah, I think you do due diligence to the topic, but me own submission on this is as I always say, we need a thorough judicial reform, criminal justice reform, and I think say the political will not do it for let them do them, or government wait for the UNDP fund them or defeat, because it seems as if that's me the CC and the thing really hold them for doing. I might be wrong, but it is overdue now for them. We don't get a thorough criminal justice reform for this 21st century. The one way with is still useful and still a colonial days. If you wonder yesterday don't do the own. Waiting do we for don't try for don't do you we all able for match modern day democracy. Then I've got a question I will ask concerning the statutory rape you mentioned, but I'm not able to forget. I know saying at the US here we get the different states and get different age of consent. Like when in Maryland here, the age of consent is 18. It may be have been 16 some years ago, but they don't be 18 years. Like when you talk in North Carolina outside the 13. So I want to know if because you explain what rape and the statutory rape. Now, but the statutory rape now unable for grasp well which you mean. So in a sense, if a picking way then at the age of consent, for example, and if somebody gets mommy and daddy business with her, we'll go reclassify that as a statutory rape. What if now grooming the person with a groomer or the person force or whatever? You go still classify that as a statutory rape. Now that's about it. Now that question, I just need clarification from you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now, okay. Statutory rape, the law presumes that before the intention was mostly females, because I think the general concept was now man then the rape woman, not the other way around. But now with a broader definition of consent, gender. So now man can rape man can rape woman, and woman can rape man, and all of that. So this is how they not broaden the definition. Statutory rape now just a matter of the maturity of the mind. So the parliament or the legislature of a certain state, if not within the United States, or if not a different country, then say no matter how a young person looks, whether the person look matured like a grown woman, she's still in brain not the develop as fast as in body they develop. So society decides say for protect that individual day, when like sometimes we can see people in back home when a big but it behave like small picking, meaning the reason before you do certain things. So if you get a 12-year-old, but who in all physical sense, if you get a female who is 12 years old, but in many respects look like a 20-year-old, in that if a woman, a dog begin for seeing period, even though she's 12, or a dog engage in sexual activities, even though she's 12, and doing all within. So the law just assumes say we get for protect people like this because in brain not the work within growth. So therefore, we go pass a law for say if you we know or should know that this na pikin, you just take advantage of the fact that she's physically attractive and mentally immature. You use your superior talent or skill for overcomer and make it agree this 12-year-old forget sex with you. The law still say we go protect this young woman against himself because you not get enough sense for give consent. And now made them come up with the age. And then in court, they get that age, there's a cutoff line. Then say, so if you are this age and below, even if you agree with someone to have sex, that person still will be punished by law. He had no business having sex with you because you're much too young by age to give consent. I give the example of you cannot engage as a minor, you cannot engage in a contract because the law say, because not to criminal thing, a contractual law, then doesn't say, old enough for engage in a contract with an adult. Therefore, you will not be held accountable if you breach that contract there, or that agreement there. So now the same thing. So the statutory rape is just a cutoff line where the court say the distinction under ordinary rape definition, consent is a defense. If you can go in a court or the person, as you can prove, say, when the intimacy was consensual, one of the broad definition of rape, even the statutory definition of rape, if you can prove, say, it was consensual, either by the person admitting and say, well, yeah, I agree. I tell me, say, we'll go get sexual act together, then I agree. So, force me. Force me. That is sufficient defense for you to be found not guilty or for the case to be dismissed. But under statutory rape, that will not be a defense. Consent will not be a defense because the law already does presume, say, you're not picking. You don't get the ability to forgive consent. So there's a presumption of undue advantage being taken. So therefore, all they get for doing and for proof, say there was an intimate or sexual act between the two, and you are guilty of the crime. Whereas the regular rape, consent is important. And if the so-called victim can come to court and say, well, I allowed him, I gave him consent, you're free to go. Statutory rape, you don't have any such defense. The victim or the young woman or the young man can come and say, well, yeah, if he tell me, say, he go give me 1 million, Leon, I believe him, so now that make I go sleep with him. But the turn out and a lie to me. Then, but watching at your age, or my age, I only 12 year old, 13 year old, that's statutory rape. It no matter when indoor admit say agree for let una go get intimate relationship. Whereas rape, you force the person against his will, So down the own, the facts can take care of itself. I hope I'm able to explain it and make the distinction. But if not, I'll be more than happy for this make that distinction between rape and statutory rape uh, in a subsequent discussion because my co-host is anxious for us to move on. So let's move on.
Well, I think say let's do justice to this person. We'll get one caller on the line. After that, now we'll go to this main topic, constitutional review, where deal with all the issues in terms of citizenships, rights, duties, and obligations, thing to do about the judiciary and everything. So let's take that caller.
Hello, caller. Welcome. What's in the issue where you get and what's in your name? And where you call from?
Yes, sir. Good evening. This is Fodi Mustafa from Leicester, sir.
Welcome, Mr. Fode Mustafa. Nice to hear from you.
Yes. Now, about this Camarimba issue, for me, the most disheartening thing is that how the trial went. Because, first of all, I don't know if I don't tell you before, in lawyer, them talk, say they want the jury trial. The judiciary said, no, not judge alone. And look at the way they judge the case.
Yes. Let me just interrupt you. The court was wrong in saying that the right to a jury trial is a constitutional right granted the defendant. If the law permits a judge for determining whether a person should be tried by a jury or not, that is one of the constitutional reviews and what we talk about. Where Mr. Mengo get for talk about, maybe I go interject my idea. So that should not be a judge's decision whether someone should be. It should be mandatory that a defendant consciously waiving right to a jury trial. No judge should be able to do that. But go ahead, sir. Sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. Now because because then she say even Paulo Conte in on trial, if not been judged alone, believe me, they don't kill him by now.
Yeah, he would
because
have been
these judges they are appointed by the president, and they have a duty to fulfill. And you see, just because people don't get a difference in opinion about politics, you go take your own salon brother, that died the guy that died so because which they release and so now they don't say you don't go to the point where in recovery not going to be possible. And now all of a sudden the people who been talking say, oh, in reach bail condition. Now he reach bail condition. How do you explain that to the people? When I don't talk to her, they say reach bail condition, meet them. And now today, all of a sudden, they say they grant them bill. You have to explain this further so that people understand which is the threshold of this bill now where the guy meets. For me, very unfortunate. Say people's political differences. Go carry with this kind of animosity. Because I have to disagree with you at some point. Even the one that inside the same political party will disagree. Look at the fact with inside the APC till today, it's rumbling. Does it mean that you have to go that far to seeing the life of a Sierra Leonean going down the drain because you not disagree? Because look at the way they try the case. Not to say they do any biological or scientific evidence. Now, what you just person can't say. Now, they didn't judge the case. They say you are guilty. Hey, boy, you give the person 32 years for that matter. One, the other part where they young picking, not to less than 10 years and game. They give young picking belle. The other paramount chief from the south there, where they be accused for do something, they left them free. They don't even care and go na police station. Just because this person in voice in terms of politics is very high and very loud. Now when I go take this guy, when I punish your own citizen, when your own countryman, an officer go hit any Sierra Leonean to the point of since he for die. But this now ain't they happen so. Now they see this guy, he don't deteriorate so much that they say they able to talk. Now they say no left him. Now they left him now it is too late. All the things it might be so much damage in the system that not able to survive. May they make sure say when they say rape case or sexual cases, then make sure say biological evidence it take place before you convict somebody, because anybody can say something. Because this thing they say now let's just round up. Now just
Go
a
ahead.
text message you send to somebody because if you want, you know, like when they do now salon say, oh, I go marry, I go take care of her, I go take care of his school. They use that pap. They say this man don't go make, they go make kiss them. They say even the one the way the guy be try for count as evidence. Then come they all talk say that day we didn't talk about Camarimba was in McKinney, not in Koidu. But then squash all that, then convict the man because now a political case. Thank you very much. I'll call back later for the constitutional review. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Bye-bye.
you very much, Mr. Mustafa, as always. Yeah. Um, no, well, you know, I'm condemning the system. I'm condemning the practice. I'm condemning the insensitivity. I have always spoken against that. I've even accused the Bar Association, the civil society folks who sometimes are very selective in the kind of cases. And in fact, if they were selective, Camarimba's case should have been one of the cases that should have given highlights to. So I do not understand how such a practice can be allowed to continue. What do I not understand? Because, like I say, I was a trial lawyer. I was a criminal trial lawyer. I've been a lawyer uh, roughly about 47 years now, and I started off in the courtroom. And when you're not a courtroom lawyer, by William system, you are a slugger. You are there, like in the ring, fighting for the rights, protecting the system. And I remember when I used to go to court as a young lawyer, because then I was more gutsy than I am now. I always try to remind the jury. Well, first of all, in America, you go hardly find any defense attorney will go waive a jury trial. I don't say because unless it does really does see the crystal ball and the figure say inclined stand a chance before a particular judge, because sometimes we tend to study the tendencies of judges, and we may roll the dice and say I rather get bench trial, but that's hardly ever happens because you the lawyer you might be taking a big chance. You might be taking a big chance of waiving your client rights, and you're not going to even try that because you want to let try that client they knowingly, responsibly, intelligently waive that right that you're a jury trial. Otherwise, you're always better off, you know, in a trial by your peers than with a judge alone. Because, like you say, well, judges they get their own imbued biases. Besides the fact that the government, well, first of all, if the president I appoint you, not necessarily mean you owe a duty or obligation to satisfy the president because appointment does not necessarily mean a political overtone. Being a judge, you should take, like you to be prosecutor. You do prosecute people. Then when they don't make you a judge, you for begin to see things objectively, not to that one-sided view that you don't job now before prosecute people. And even prosecutors in Williams system now. Sometimes the lawyer, the defense attorney go, he get a private conference with the prosecutor and say, hey, here is what I understand the nature of the crime to be against my client. My client is nothing like he's being talked about. So you can make a case to the prosecutor. And yeah, prosecutors can get more discretionary power, I guess. Back home, maybe they do, they just don't exercise the discretionary power for make a thorough assessment of the case. Prosecutors don't have to object and push for imprisonment in all circumstances. You know, they can be as considerate as a judge ought to be. So, so in the Camarimba case, like I keep saying, and I'm trying so hard to get away from the issue only because of time. The reason is with judges there. I mean, you give a man 30, well, the facts don't back it up. And but I don't want to get into in detail. That would be a subject for another day because even the medical science may not have been necessary because we cannot lose sight of a cultural or cultural system. How much role does that play? If you went some practice in certain tribes, that you could see a small woman, titi, some are small, as young as when they're a baby. Some man begins saying, I'm a future wife, they say begin paying family. Should the families be allowed to accept money for that picking day by somebody, a grown person? And so are they enablers? If that man they begin get sex with that picking at an earlier age, and is this man where they pay the money at the early age? Now, in responsibility of that's his culture. So where does should culture not be taken as a defense if it can be proven that your culture allowed that? But so there's many things we can talk about this Camarimba thing. The system is bad. So 32 years for an alleged rape, you wonder where did this judge watching in political purpose, because this is not justice being dispensed. This is not an outrageous, forcible rape. If in fact there was sexual contact, but let's leave that. I mean, like I want me co-host for be able for we'll get into other things. So please, if people have any more questions on that issue, they just so we know each up all the time on the Camarimba thing. Hold your fire. We will try for revisit this topic. So, Mr. Mengot, let me go back to you. And please try for me not to take another call, because I may be forced back to the Camarimba thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, the people, I feel to say this Camarimba issue is also fundamental to this tool they talk about constitutional review. And constitutional review, as I say, we get several issues then we're going to come about, who they discuss, where at least then get suggestion. But for put people in track, because there's so much to talk about this constitution, and like we can do with other topic, this Camarimba issue in terms of access to justice, in terms of right to jury trial, in terms of culture and the law, these are issues that could be taken further when we are reviewing our constitution, especially in terms of the judiciary. But now it means that we will have to do a part 2, because there are so many things to talk about the constitution. Let's go back to history, because if you want to review anything, you get for go say, as the Kisena Krio, you know the Lukusai for the Lukusai Boki foot. So how did we get to where we are? We've been getting a 1978 constitution, when are the one-party constitution, where means say all would have been there in politics, therefore join the one party, when that ruling party then have been the APC party. And I can always make this where people like they talk about this APC, SLPP, who don't rule long, who don't rule more and less. The one party institution, they not been forced anybody for be part of that one party. Not so we all can go into politics. But that one party constitution get politicians from the APC side and the SLPP side. So that one party there will be get. And in fact, that one party constitution, they even bring the armed forces, especially if we remember the by then have been commissioner of police and the head of the army. Now that makes sure themselves can get involved in politics, which is the start of the force system. We're supposed to be neutral, we for defend the states, they can't get involved in politics. So we get that 1978 constitution day, one party, then during the time where the world, the global politics, be allowed for this Cold War between the East and the West. So they're not been to pay attention. A lot of African countries being a one party. So Sierra Leone was not immune from that. So after the 1978 constitution, due to influences from both multilateral and bilateral, and why they talk about multilateral and bilateral development pattern, multilateral, now people like the UN, because the UN comprises of different nation states, or like the World Bank, we comprise also of different nation states and different agencies. Or like the EU, bilateral, now like we one-to-one relationship with Britain, with our colonial master. America, who has always been supporting us, we get a good history with America in terms of slavery and all that thing, and other countries, then both in Africa and the world. So what's happening? They say, well, the term don't done for law left this one party. So one of the conditions where they give President Momo, if we remember, President Momo has been the first president we go openly say he not failed the nation. So regardless of what you might say about him, he was willing for law get this 1991 constitution, when a transition from a one-party state to a multi-party state, right? So after that, we will forget election. So the 1991 constitution, the drafters of those constitutions, been still one preserve some of them powers and they under a one-party state. And me listeners then go ask me why I say so. Number one, the executive powers of the president. We then give enormous powers to the president, which we will discuss later on. Number two, the power of the political party, where if you want to stand for president, you get for be nominated or represent a political party. Where it means in other parts of the constitution, you can stand as independent for MP, member of parliament. You can stand as independent for a mayor or chairperson of a district council. You can stand as independent for a councillor, but you cannot stand as an independent for president. So then the party power. You got a section of opposition which also makes the party, if they expel you for what they can regard as anti-party activity, or you not toe the line of the party, then all the party get for doing now for write to the speaker for say you are no longer a member of that party and you will lose your seat against the wish of the people them we appointed. So we get all these small things and then we can at this 1991 constitution. Of course, at the time, we not test them. Now we get the Civil War. The Civil War lasts from 1992 to 2002. So the first time we will test this constitution. Now when we get the first election, we bring Kabata to power. When another time they bring this PR system, we don't PR this proportional representation system, where they bring and say, well, okay, not to all sides safe, law bring that list system, which we all be accept. But that same system there, because we left the constitution, now can hunt we now this 2023 election. So these are the challenges and the issues them. And also, why also we need a review of this constitution? Because after the war, we don't go sign the Lome Peace Accord. We've been going to call the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. For Selo ask, why what we do wrong? We make Sierra Leone'S, you either join the rebel or you get the government military side for fight and destroy their own country, destroy properties, kill people them, cut hand, cut foot. Waiting at the reason. And some of the things where the TRC mentioned, now injustice, right? The type of government will bring advantage with politician and take. So that TRC they be recommend for a review with constitution. So if we look at the TRC, we get the summary of the findings, so then just do it. There were so many issues. The TRC report highlights in the finding many of the causes of the conflict that prompted why young people, mostly young people, to be involved in this. Coincidentally, today I see a tweet by Eddie Macaulay, one of the lawyers, and he said that generation between 35 and 45, now they're responsible for what they happen in our country today. You talk about the people that age 25 and 35. So if we go back and say the rebel war done now 2002 done. Yeah, that now over 20 years ago. So 25 and 35-year-old man now, some of them they be infant, and some, the older one among them, were teenagers. So now that group of people and they now in our country, predominantly, we know say this government they talk about, we don't bring youth camp. The line of thoughts is completely different because they grow under the law of the jungle, kill or be killed. But me add to that, I say, well, this 25 to 45 is now aided and abetted by the 45 to age 60. Because me and my co-host here, we don't pass that generation there. By salon standard, we are geriatric. We can tell him about nostalgia, about what we experienced in a salon. So Pakabaka, he tried to do this constitutional review. Then there was a change of government. Then Anesco Omar came. He bring the Justice Cowan Commission of Inquiry, which was a very comprehensive review of the Constitution. Not only comprehensive in the sense of the thing that we then deal with under the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but also the people that will be involved, the Bar Association, civil society, traditional rulers, then come with them and say, I was privileged. God been giving me that sababu de la put in a crew for meet with this great man, Justice Cowan, and discuss the issue about this constitution, which in a being take. Because Justice Cowan now serves capacity as a civil servant. He also served as a judge in the court system. He also served as a speaker of our parliament. He also served as head of ombudsman. What's in an ombudsman? Ombudsman, now that body where if you get problem, you can go talk about the administration. Okay. Now, somebody they say not a single current political party on their own capable of carrying out constitutional review. An equal number of very limited members of each party alongside an independent panel is the only way. I cannot agree with this text more. Because even though the Cowan Commission will get political parties and everything, we get a lot of people, but what you will not be get the independent INGOs, them who call international non-governmental, but we not been seek assistance from places like the Commonwealth or the African Union or ECOWAS for let them bring constitutional experts. Just like waiting Kenya them been do, because I was part of that system when Kenya been doing constitution. But country then different. Anyway, somebody they say Momo failed and he acknowledged it. Bio has failed and continues to fail, but wants to be praised. Well, here we know the Bible say me a Christian, and today Sunday. It said, judge not or you shall be judged. This is the issue we get. We always try for blame one leader against the other. Yes, all men get in fault. But the problem with we in a salon, we dey blame all other person apart from we self. Now that makes so this topic today we say constitutional review, the great citizens and debate. And what does that mean? It means say for law we change with constitution, everybody get for be involved. Everybody get for be involved. And what's in the process for change the constitution? Yes, somebody they say Mother Bio is just doing what Tijan Kaba didn't have time to do. We are not against if the president decide for do constitutional review. But then in my opening speech, I was asking, is this the right timing? Because, and I tell you the reason why I say if this is the right timing. Remember a few weeks back, the same on this program, somebody may even try for challenge me while I make a statement. The president asked for a review of the ECSL. ECSL means the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone. And the person tell me, say, not to the results, but to the procedure. Let I respond to this other one. The executive powers in the Sierra Leone Constitution absolutely disgraceful and renders the Sierra Leonean a civic fool. How any serious consultation go allow the president all these powers? These are some of the key issues we are talking about, the executive powers. And it come back to my own theory or my own assertion, which I can be challenged, that moving from a one-party constitution to a multi-party constitution, and under the one-party constitution, the president had absolute powers. The drafters of those constitutions been they try for preserve some of those powers of the president. Now that makes so we get what we call executive powers under the 1991 constitution. I'm not saying it is right or it is wrong, but if you take that, we don't see over the years how different leaders don't actually use the constitution for their advantage. Hey, somebody say a more accurate assessment of age go to be 45 to 75. Mr. Mengos, Abbas Bundu, Minkailu Yasane, Prince Adin, they're all currently influential and they may not serve back in the days. Yes, we still have this recycled politician, yeah, where the older folks now, where in my own view, them for they enjoy retirement life like how me they do. But another salon. So, yes, they are also influential. But the bulk of the people, them, now the younger generation, we allow. So, how do you go do this constitutional review process? So, in the constitution, it deals with several issues then. And if I go back to waiting the white paper, where the Justice Cowan reports be looked at, then call for proposed new chapters in the Constitution when a local government and decentralization, citizenship, land, natural resources and the environment, information, communication, and the media. So if we get 10, which I don't think we might have, we'll discuss those ones. But then they talk about existing chapters in the Constitution when need review. When are the fundamental principles of state policy and what in that they mean? What in the responsibility of the state for look after in people. It just sound like where you didn't host. The papa now responsible for look after the family. Because the papa get the mama when at the wife. He get the picking them in some affluent house. He get the one there where they work for him, whether it be house boy or nanny. That papa they now for decide how they use that powers there for make sure say you get harmony in the family. Yes, let's take this other comment. The APC failed at implementing a constitutional review after rigorous contribution by citizens. They had the opportunity and suffering the consequences. Yes, the texter, you are entitled to your opinion, but you see, the point is, when we go like for say, one thing about you people, we look like for drive with reverse gear. Okay, somebody say you are not allowing picking calls for now. Let me ask me control room. Is there any caller now? Why I don't make the introduction? If we get caller, I can pick call now. And since I don't introduce this subject, we can continue next week. But I want, let's see. We are still picking calls. Yeah, there's a caller on the line.
Oh. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you call from? We were not aware of you trying to reach us, but please go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. This is Abdullah from New Jersey. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been
Abdullah,
there for a
welcome.
while now.
Thanks for calling.
I still enjoy the program, though. Thank you, Mr. Mengot and Mr. Shellon. Yeah. So, what's the topic? Very nice. I support everything I don't hear from the two of you today on this constitutional review. And the blame is squarely on every politician now with they both SLPP and APC. Because this thing don't begin from 1991, with the emergence of the 1991 Constitution. But again, there was a question earlier, why now the bill for Camarimba? Let us not forget, before I even come to within a own view about how this constitutional review and how it will help Sierra Leone be. Let's not forget, Camarimba is the first person, I think in the first year of President Bio in term, we publicly, and this was not outside Sierra Leone, he was on the ground, we publicly begin criticize President Bio on his failures, and even label him for the OTP, which he called one-time president. He even say President Bio in 2023, it would join the likes of President Mahama from Ghana with a feel not in first term. And if they do one, we not to just trying to spoiling somebody's character as many of us they do on social media, but if they do one with point, it lists down the failures, whether or not the economy, whether the principal one will be hit hard on. They talk of security, they talk of corruption, with President Bio being claimed for be a flagship program, all of that. If they do on a radio, if they do on a TV, all of a sudden, boom, rape case come against them, or sexual penetration case come against them. And I know they say this for cry down the seriousness of this particular action of the country. We don't be teaching 7 years in Sierra Leone. All sectors, that problem did this. At the teaching field, now the government, civil service, other sectors, it did it. So I know they say this because I want to water down the value or the importance of us as a nation looking into it. But now it's surprised or it's shocking for see Camarimba when you look at the stance where it takes from the beginning of the president in first term. And considering how the thing goes, say it comes to in bail issue, say and deny in bail, we get all of that up to today. Now the resident grant and bail. The reason is very evident. This was one of the most serious critics against President Bio. If I may make him very unpopular at an early stage, even than anybody they expect, you know. So that's not my point with that. When it comes to the review of the Constitution, yes, I look at look at myself and ask, what's in the help, the contribution of we so-called international partners? Yes, are they against we ministers and other people they talk about with sovereignty because I think not BS. We cannot talk about sovereignty where we don't even get we will manufacture our own water for drink with all the water we will get and not going at the medical field. So we still get with fingers deeply into the mouth of these people. My own concern or question I get for them specifically, how serious are these international partners? Are they specifically talk of the UK, the US, the EU? How serious are they for Sierra Leone go to a better level? Is it that they're there for an interest where sometimes even they think about? Or they really did it for support Sierra Leone? Let we grow from this level road on this. Because for me, if they, in my opinion, one area where they for support we, now this constitutional review, now they are talking about holding up a Millennium Compact Fund, whatever it is. if the entire situation today and day, why a government not steering for come in the first 5 years, he look at all of that, he make everything else flagship program, whether not free education, whether not attitudinal change, whether not this, but then they look at the constitutional review and specifically amendment or what else to say, restructuring of the judicial system. You know, because if that judicial system be done reset, everything else will be cried today, whether not corruption, whether not this, not that, it will just fall in place. But are these people really serious? If they not say, if they owe money for GUI, will they listen to them? What if it be their first point? Now for say, oh, now we score card na corruption, how long are we going to score this card na corruption or whatever, where with judicial system, we for put that program there in check? It's not serious, it's not something. And this is something they are aware of, because they see them, they practice on at the very country who say they, then they come out go help we. So until they're ready for tell the government, they say, hey, when you come your first time, we know they support you. If you get for focus, 60% it will be on review of your constitution and strengthening of the judicial system. Otherwise, you know they give this funding, whether not grants, whether not loan, whether not this. I don't care. Until these so-called international partners are ready for do so, me no go ever believe and trust them, say they're really ready for help with. Because if they take 500 million and give, then build with energy system. But we judicial broke. What's happening to Camarimba? So if they continue, even after this government, other governments to come. So they have to be serious. If they're really serious, they have to help us also, because the truth is we are not ready to help ourselves. Some people might come at me to say, oh, no, we for do and for we say. No, we cannot. That's the truth. So they have to take whatever it takes for support for build with judicial system.
Okay, Kola, thank you very much. We don't give enough latitude. You know, we don't get the buzzer and we don't get enough time. I think there are other callers in the line. I will respond to that you issue there later on. And we thank you for your contribution. We recognize what you say. And I get plenty for talk about the relationship between we so-called partners and development partners, and because of my experience working in that area in international development. So thank you very much. I will address that later. We get another caller on the line.
Hello, caller. What's your name? Hello, caller. Caller, what's your name? Which side you call from?
My name Abbas Kanu. I call from Lomley.
Okay, Abbas. Welcome.
Yeah. I listen the program. Me, but the Camarimba you talk, I not get you issue there because of why. And they make the like to do the suffer like how they suffer. So we say me own point. I know I'm talk with 2 minutes. From my own point, where I want out here, so where they try for talk about parliament, right? If APC MP they not go na parliament, then we lose them seat. Right? The people they wouldn't vote them in, then say make them go na parliament. First of all, I make this clear. That make will be the try for talk about this PR system. Where they go na parliament, you know they go represent the people in our community. Now the party they go represent. So this talk here, when a lot try forget about time for say if the APC they not go na parliament, then they go lost their seat, then they go. No, people they hold them. Who vote APC then in? We say pass the right thing done. You don't understand, eh? We know for say APC they not ever lost that election day. And we wanna see these 2 years is not possible they tell big person to go feel them. But these 2 years, look they tell una the big one, the owner can then at this social media so. Right? And not come for can disrespect nobody, right? But if una can on social media, una they talk the right thing, salon for straight. But when they can at this social media, so una know they talk the right thing. When they can at this platform here, so una not they call president be yourself as president. Mother be not to president, right? Mother be not vote in. You don't understand? And when una can at this social media, una they talk if the MP they are not gonna party office na parliament, then they will lose their seat. No. We would vote APC there. We say may not go na parliament. Right? But the right thing done. You don't understand, eh? So when I can talk to APC there, the people there vote there in, then what the one they vote them go represent. APC they not going to parliament for go represent people there. Now party then they go represent because I make them say
sorry to interrupt you.
You don't understand, eh? But when they try for talking no more about this constitution, hold on, from 2000 and not born itself.
Just hold on 1 minute, sir. This program will not ever mention anything about APC not going to parliament. That is not our own remit. We not ever talk about what the APC do or what the APC not do. What will they talk about if you listen to the program carefully? Will they talk about constitutional review? When are we all responsibility? Where if the thing that were in the constitution, like you where they talk so, you right to justice. If police hold you now, then can you go to police station? How you go able to defend yourself? If you there, you want get access to employment. How they go employ you without they not look at you tribe, you region, or who you come up from. So that correct you, sir. We know they talk about whether APC they go parliament or they not they go parliament, sir. So if not that you they talk, we are not there. So don't blame us. We are just trying to present what we see. I think say we'll get another caller on the line.
Hello, caller. What you know your name is the call from?
Yes, this is Afodo Mustafa again. Professor. You know,
Welcome.
I don't know if we don't know now, say, then we don't produce a white paper about 2 years ago. In that white paper, they
Yes,
tried
we are aware
to
of that.
maintain
We are
the
aware of
powers.
that white paper 2 years ago.
Yes, they try for maintain, then just copy what the APC be say, then they accept, and what then they reject with a slight modification. To the point that say Ibrahim Tomi, he say in disappointed because if they expect say President Biafra move far away from the APC standpoint, but they don't remove provision. So if not for me, if they talk about review of the constitution, they will talk about for go on the document itself, not to the white paper. We didn't get that table because the white paper we didn't put that table is not much different because the president is going to maintain his powers as it is. I don't know if I know again say the constitution is so vague. The president, even when he can have parliament, as he enters parliament, so the president takes over parliament. He's the head now in the parliament. Which they hold him accountable. So they don't want to touch all of those powers. The only thing they want to touch about now slight thing like see they talk about the 1965 Public Order Act where they suppress people. Then go take they say now we talk about what is them the review again the libel, criminal libel. Then left the protest union. They go take again. Some try say, oh, they're not for kill somebody. They are just, the thing that would favor them so that the white, the Western people, they support them, our government, then they clap for them, say they not do something. But, eventually, the things the way get for make say, the president in powers, they reduce dramatically, they don't want to touch there at all. Because if you are able to get access to that white paper, una go see and they clearly see the powers of the president. They don't want to touch them at all. Like when APC reject that say and Escorma for losing powers them. Now the same way the president Bill say him back reject say he lost empower them. So if they want to review this constitution, no, therefore think about say then talk about the document itself. Because not me, because democracy as you get and the work, the work in Africa. Because why? Now ethnicity, now in them put we. I mean, the which man them then get homogeneous populations. For instance, in England, in France, in Germany, you get homogeneous population where now almost they talk the same language, so they are going to vote on issues. The people that will be the 1996 election, they tell we vote the first time. On the northern part of the country at that time, there was pure democracy because there was a fierce rivalry between Temu Bangura and Khalifa Smart. You go see husband and wife, they may talk that same day because of waiting the competition of ideas that time day. So just touch more on the tribe, what I mean. Like the countries then will get tribe, like Europe. So Spain, for instance, Switzerland, for instance, Belgium, for instance, the factor, the tribes them in the democracy. So therefore, it will work. But if we get more President Bill, for instance, this election will pass, with them the real results now the northern part, Samura will get 250, President Bill will get 5. That is disgraceful for a president. So if they want make for let you work out, at least they for put tribe, for instance, in Belgium, which I me be there for about 15 years or so, then get three tribes, them, the Germans, the French, and the Dutch speakers. And when they come from governance, all of these tribes have to be represented equally. All positions, when they not talk, say the northern part of the country get 7 cabinet positions. When they say the south forget six cabinet positions, nobody changes that. Then go to the police who are the same. Then go to the military who are the same. Everything not the same thing. So I just want to make you. I'm on the phone. You can't talk to me. 1 minute. So
Okay,
then,
sir. Thank you very much. You know, so we didn't run out of time. We now cut you short. I don't know if we get any other
sorry
caller.
about that. So we will
Yeah,
continue next
because we
time.
don't give
about
you
that.
the buzz. Okay, I think there's
Okay.
another caller there. Let's take as much call as possible, then we go round up.
Hello, hello, caller. What's your name? Where's you call from? Hello, caller.
Oh,
Yeah, caller, go ahead. Hello. Okay.
okay. Now, okay. Now, first of all, I want to say thank you to all the people that we actually submit comments, and also the one that we call. Now make sure we call the the citizens debate, because constitution change it affect all of we. And if I can go back, we call them the great citizens debate. This not way affect all of we. Just to look at key issues them, right? 4 main issues that we for talk to in depth. Nothing for do with local government decentralization. Then we recommend say we forget a chapter within the constitution for deal with local government and give power more to the people. But we see the reverse, the apple now where there's more of centralization. Before this constitutional review, remember there was a local government cabinet paper we come back, which was later rejected, and then we get a local government act. They also talk about citizenship as a new chapter. Well, citizenship, now President Kabab, actually make sure say with 1973 Citizens Act, they amend them, which means now Sierra Leoneans can afford to have dual nationality or even multiple nationality, like some of we. Like me now, me not Trisim, me not Tutusim. But I will let people there for guess the other one them. But even when you be that dual citizenship, you get certain restriction. Because you can vote, but you cannot be voted for. Also, we have been discussing issue about people then voting from whose side they reside. Because for now participate in the electoral process, we get for spend money first for go register. Secondly, for go verify registration. Thirdly, for go vote. For we were in England, I don't know for America, they even more. Even if you did at the west coast of America, then California, and then places. You're talking about over $15,000 for just go exercise one vote. I can say this. If the diaspora has them, then give them, or we were there around, then give you the right for voters over there and even contribute. We can able to fund the election. We bring me back to an issue where one of we call it the raise. We talk say we international partners them, they blame them. Saying that they not make we able to review constitution and not call us a priority. Yes, but one thing I would like for tell that caller, they say, even for move from a one party to a multi-party, it was pressure from our international partner. Even the current review, the constitutional review, the international partner then contribute enormous funds to that. But then there is some what you call diplomacy when you talk about bilateral and multilateral agencies. We as a country now we get for know what you want. Now we get for ask for what you want, and then get the people away for help for provide the help we want. But if on one hand you get a certain section of the population, as recently where they say we not sovereign states, nobody enough can tell you waiting for do. Then on the other hand, you get another part of Sierra Leone, and so they say, oh, the international community now we moral guarantors them. Now they can't force the government for do it in they want. It means we the citizens, we don't know what you want. Because we the citizens we're divided. We waiting here where they present this program. Even me and my co-host, I like one phrase we can use. Reasonable men are allowed to differ. Me get another one I can use. There's no monopoly to knowledge. Sierra Leone, now we all young. We get for know what we as Sierra Leonean want. Because the politicians and now we put in a power. If we sit down the fet we self, we they blame, oh, na Momo been do this, na Shaki this, na Kabas, na Anesco been do this, Biono to we president, na Bio do this. We're not going able to change the system. And for this constitutional review, we get a lot of things where our key problem is the power we'll give to one man. Whether that man a wear red ronco or green ronco, until we look at that, where we all nation, we trust enormous power in the hands of one man. When they decide who that for be judge, it can call judge say, that case day, sit down panel. I mean, go back. Look at the issue of the Auditor General. How long that case they done there? We're not hearing nothing. There's also case against the former mayor, which did not happen. There's also case same way for determine under the Commission of Inquiry, which happened. So, until we as people know what we want and come and work together and hold we politicians to account, there are so many ways we can hold them to account. We go always use the divide and rule. So, the next issue where I want to talk about now the composition of this constitutional review. Let me go one more address one issue where one of the callers asked, talk about the previous review where them do. Yes, in a recent review, the Solicitor General, when the government leaks her, when they ask him, say if the issue of this executive power they talk, if they go deal with her, he say, well, it will be one of the issue, but waiting them more they focus on now because they don't get things like the GUI Act, they don't pull the Criminal Libel Act, where they talk about climate change, so now then thing they don't put in our constitution. That's fine. But the basic thing where every Salomon wants now access to justice. Where you go police, then treat you the same. They're not going to take advantage by you. Access to employment. We get equal opportunity for get employment. Access to good health. These are things we want for every Sierra Leonean. So if we don't know what to want, we left everything in the hands of the politician, then we become praise singers or critics. I'm afraid Salon go there today. So now me will round up down there for today, but we go visit this issue of the constitutional review when we get more details in terms of who are the people that were involved, waiting at the terms of reference, whose document then they use. Because now we get the TRC report, we get the Cowan white paper, we get the SLPP white paper. We want to see waiting at the reference, waiting they want touch on. And when we get the information there, we hope so we'll bring this program back to our listeners then. Follow get again what you call the great citizen debate. What we the people they want, what you want to talk about, what you want the government. Because at the end of the day, for do constitutional review, even if they take and go parliament, then get for come back and do a referendum. So that referendum, they will get for know which will they accept and which will not they accept. So I go hand over now to me co-host, if you can get round up on the program. We don't exceed with normal time. And I hope say we will continue. And I continue for the same information on our page, with Facebook page. Allow know what in concern the citizen about this great citizens debate on with constitution, why we want to be ruled, governed, and things to do with human rights and access to justice. Over to you, Shilon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mengot. In closing, I just want for let people know say the constitutional issue, the review of the process was going to be remain maybe only topic with some subtopics. But the Camarimba situation, which was also equally important, but we had thought and hoped that we would just deal with that as the first issue and spend less time. So we will do some editorial review, me and my co-host and my producer, and we might get a part 2 of this constitutional review because we think it's a very, very serious issue where we will discuss. This is all trying for enlighten people and trying to get people for make not only projections and predictions, but for make contributions. So I think we will do a review and we'll go most likely visit you now on this topic, if not the next weekend, but soon thereafter. So because we get time limitation, we'll not get the privilege of indefinitely just discussing an issue because the producer, we have get other issues them for deal with at the end of the day. So please, thank you for calling, contributing. We strongly encourage you now, if we get differences of opinion, say not only express them by making them comments there, but if we get documentary evidence, way for buttress on a point or for help we on points, please send them to us, okay? Because that helps, because what we try to do now for what will benefit the country, that's what will benefit one political. In fact, nothing benefits a political party. We're there under an illusion, thinking political parties, then they get benefit. Just a handful of people, the top echelon of the on them party, then go benefit individually, financially. But in terms of benefit in the lasting sense for any political party, it just doesn't happen. It's only when we come with a broader sense of obligation and commitment to making the country a better place for us and for unborn generation that we will see the results of what we try to do. Until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for contributing. Please call us. Listen to us next week, same time. And we'll be back, hopefully. Thanks a lot. Have a nice evening. Nice morning.
So before
nice
we
afternoon.
go, I want to respond to one of we call our way they ask, say, one waiting on the third sim. It says Sierra Leone, Britain, and Kenya. I will tell and say, not to Kenya na walk day. But for sure, our salon been there, me third sim na Cameroon, because my father was a Cameroonian who came to Sierra Leone in the early 50s. And my uncle, the Eikome, another Cameroonian, was the one who contributes and make education at Salon with Independence Memorial School. So Cameroon is my fatherland, Sierra Leone is my motherland, and Britain is where I've spent the best part of my professional life. So thank you very much. Good night. God bless.